Kamen Rider Ryuki was a season of Kamen Rider that I have always had my eye on. It has decent enough suits, and I've heard good things about it, but the thing that really gravitated me towards the season was the idea of 13 Kamen Riders having to battle it out until only one of them remained. It was the first time this many riders were introduced into a season, and while this idea has been repeated many times throughout the Heisei era, and the season has even been surpassed in number of riders, I've still always wanted to check out the season. When Ryuki made a cameo appearance in Kamen Rider Geo, it coincided with the announcement of a new Rider Time Ryuki spin-off to go along with the special for Shinobi. This miniseries finally gave me an excuse to go watch History of Kamen Rider Ryuki so that I could get a good understanding of what was going on in this special, and so I could review it. Since I've watched it, I'm here to do just that, give my review of Kamen Rider Ryuki's Rider Time special. In this review, I'm going to be referring to everyone by their rider name, just because it's a lot easier for me, since again, I haven't seen the series, but I basically know what went on in the series, but I don't really know everyone's names. So now let's jump into the mirror dimension and start with the review of Rider Time Ryuki. So as I said, I liked the base idea of Ryuki with these riders battling it out, and I really like that this special basically gives you that. I think one of the biggest complaints people had with Ryuki, and that I kind of had as well, was that we never really see a bunch of riders fighting. I think at most they only had like 4 riders fighting against each other in like a 1v1v1v1. Here, the whole special literally opens with a team of 4 fighting against a team of 3, and then a bunch of monsters join in, and it's like nuts, and I like that a lot. That was probably my favorite part of the battles, because that was really cool, seeing all these riders just kind of punching each other, battling it out. Even though I like the opening, just because of the way I like storytelling and stuff like that, is I would have liked if the flashback that we got with the girl creating the mirror dimension, like something like that, to that effect, with that flashback we get like after the little title sequence. I wish that was the opening, just because that would have been a cooler opening, but that's just kind of me and the way I like seeing stuff opened in a show. I kind of like a cold open, mysterious opening, so that's just a personal thing. I think the current way it is, it's fine. So I will talk about, I guess, my biggest problem now. It's kind of present right in the beginning, because we see Kamen Rider Night is fighting Kamen Rider Abyss. So Abyss is like, quote-unquote, made canon to the Ryuki series. If you didn't know, he was a rider exclusive to Kamen Rider Decade. He appeared only in that series, but he's a Ryuki-themed rider. So Decade kind of made its own Ryuki rider. I'm not sure why, but they did. He appears in this, so that's really cool. It's the first time we see Abyss interacting with the other Ryuki riders, except he dies like literally 5 seconds after being on screen. So I'm just kind of wondering, why would you go to the effort of bringing in Abyss only to kill him off when he's on screen? And then there is my biggest problem, not specifically Abyss, but I feel like every time we have a rider die, unless it was Ryuki or Knight, they all kind of die very nonchalant. Like, they die, and then everyone's like, alright, let's move on. Pretty much everyone, when they die, feels very quick, and it feels like we could have lingered on that for a very quick second. I'll go through the plot here. So, we get our introduction with our main team, or this beginning team, Ryuki, Verde, Emperor, and Raya. They're all teamed up, but then they're going against, like, there's a separate faction going against them, which is Guy, Scissors, and Tiger. But then there's like the other factions like Abyss, then we have Knight, Oja's like on his own, Zolda then shows up, and I like the interesting dynamic where they switch it to the servant of the original Zolda. It's not the original Zolda, but I wonder why it's not the original Zolda. I guess like because he had an illness, he would have died, so they just grabbed the next best person. I don't really know why it's not the original Zolda, but I like kind of the way that works, where he's trying to be Oja's servant, and then he just betrays him later on, and he doesn't even kill Oja. Really, that was a weird bit with Oja, but I'll get to that later. So the main team, the Ryuki team, and what I guess is the Scissors team, I don't know, there's not really a clear leader with that team, but those two like big factions decide to meet up. They hand over rider decks so that it's like a truce thing, but it's like obviously a trap, and it is a trap. Raya betrayed them so that he could survive. I'm not sure why oh, okay, well, we do know why he betrayed it, but I'll get into that. So Raya betrays him, he joins the other group, and they kill off Emperor very quickly, just like in the show. Verde escapes, and Ryuki escapes with the help of Night. And from there, they kind of get a quick interaction, which is kind of hinting at what they're trying to do. But then we get a quick thing with Oja and Zolda. And then here's where I really notice like the big problem with people dying. We have Scissors, Guy, and Raya talking to each other. I believe Tiger died in the skirmish with Oja and Knight. So we have these three, and then one of the two, I can't remember, Raya or Guy, just quickly kills Scissors, just kind of out of nowhere, and then he just dies, and then we're just like, oh, is that it? I mean, to be fair, that's how it also was in the series, but like, Scissors dies, like, nothing. Like, he dies, and they're like, okay, moving on. And then from there, we also get a very interesting scene with Raya and Guy. And here's what I will say about that. I kind of like this relationship between the two of them. I thought that kind of worked for the quick second it happened. But like the scene that tells us about it was very interesting. And that's all I'll say. But basically, we kind of see the tension that the whole Rider War is having because Raya and Guy eventually just turn on each other. And I think Guy dies. If I'm not mistaken, I think he dies. Raya comes like close to dying. Okay, never mind. Guy survives. But Raya comes close to dying, and because of that, he gets his memories back. That's the way I perceived it. Like, it seemed like he's close to dying, so he gets his memories back, but then he dies before it really amounts to much. But then later on, we see that Knight suddenly gets his memories back. Oja and Zolda seem to have their memories the whole time, they said. I'm not entirely sure why they did this thing with certain people having their memories. That is another complaint. It kind of just comes out of nowhere where all of a sudden someone's like, oh my gosh, I remember everything now. And it's like when it's convenient for the plot. If they could have explained it like just the lady controlling everything, from time to time she's giving people back their memories, that would have been fine. Just a little explanation for that would have been nice. So speaking of Oja, Knight, and Ryuki, they're getting chased by Oja, the duo. They escape, they go back to like the original headquarters, and the lady shows up and she explains what's going on. Basically, in the real world, she got hit by a car, but the person who hit her eventually hit on her, and they started dating, but like the injuries were too much, so she passes out. And then now for some reason, the boyfriend became another Ryuki, and because of the way the mirror dimension monster and other riders work, the only way that they can defeat another Ryuki is to have the Ryuki Ride Watch, but they can't get it because of the way the mirror dimension works. I think it's just like how another Ryuga worked in the actual Geo show, but I'm trying to figure out how this places into the Geo timeline, because they see another Ryuki and they're like, oh, it's him again. So they've already fought another Ryuga, but does this take place during that arc? Because then Geo would have Geo 2 and he would be able to defeat another Ryuga. But then if that takes place in the middle of that arc, why couldn't Geo use the Ryuki Ride Watch to defeat Ryuga? I guess they're different riders. So I guess it takes place in the middle of the Ryuga arc, but that's not entirely clear. I'm just going to say it's that. So anyway, after that, Verde shows up with Raya, and Raya dies before it does anything, but his death causes not another Ryuki, Ryuga, who's like the original another Ryuki, I guess. Ryuga shows up and Mighty Brothers himself into Ryuki, kind of like Paradox goes into Emu in Xaid. He did that to Ryuki, creating Ryuga. Ryuga very quickly kills Kamen Rider Guy, and then Knight attempts to fight him, but then Ryuga leaves, and then the two of them split off, and Verde just very quickly dies. That's like, he dies from like the three monsters doing absolutely nothing. I don't know why that happened the way it did, but alright. So then we have Oja just like wandering around for some reason. He's about to start fighting Zolda because he just wants to fight someone. That's how his character is. He's kind of nuts. But then the monsters show up. Oja very quickly fights them, and then Ryuga shows up, begins fighting Oja until Ryuki shows up. Not Ryuki, Knight shows up, begins fighting Ryuga and Oja. And that's kind of where I'm like glad we brought back all the another riders. Where I'm glad we brought back all these riders, because it lets us have all these crazy battles between them. That was really cool. Because then Zolda shows up and he begins fighting Oja, where he reveals what I said earlier. He reveals he was just playing Oja so he could kill Oja, and he kind of kills Oja. He dies, but Oja doesn't, and I don't know why. And well, I do know why. It's so he could stab Knight and have him die, and with that, Ryuki just kind of dispelled Ryuga. Not entirely sure how, but I can accept it. It was probably some like mind shenanigans, I guess. So Ryuga, quote unquote, dies, and with Night dying, Ryuki is the victor. So then, through flashbacks, we kind of show the quick interaction they had where they realized they were fighting to find each other, per se, and they were already together, so that's kind of ironic. So they quote-unquote reunite. Then Ryuki is sent back to the real world where Gio and Gates are currently fighting another Ryuki to no avail. Ryuki shows up, fights another Ryuki for a bit, and then literally Gio and Gates stand next to him, and they get the Ryuki and Night ride watches. Like, if you thought the way that they got the ride watches in the recent episodes, and by recent I mean pre-Grand episodes, basically when the Another Riders started coming from 2019, if you thought that was messed up, I mean, like, they literally did nothing. They walked up to Ryuki and they got the ride watches. The person who did all the work was Ryuki actually getting out of the mirror dimension. I don't know. So then, via the 2 ride watches, they defeat another Ryuki very quickly, I might add. And then from there, there's this hooded figure who's been following another Ryuki around, absorbing the people he kills through this crystal thing, and he says it's gonna revive the girlfriend. But then, he transforms into Kamen Rider Odin, which I was not expecting it. I was like, oh, we're going there. And he actually shows off that he has 3 survive cards. He has the Night survive card, the Ryuki survive card, and then like his own exclusive survive card that links to 2, so it's like a big pair of wings. I don't know if that was in the Ryuki series. I don't think it was. I mean, it was cool to see. It was a nice little aesthetic choice, and it kind of reveals more about the survive cards. So then, once again, very quickly, Odin is defeated by the Ryuki and Night ride watches, and there's a cool image of the 2 silhouettes of the survive forms in front of Gio and Gates. That was pretty cool, I thought. So from there, that's basically the end. We get a quick scene with Ryuki and the awesome Ready Go Now Alive Alive Neo theme. That's really cool. I just wanted to say that. I love that little theme song. So that's the end of Rider Time Ryuki. The one thing that I don't think is clearly explained is another Ryuki and the mirror dimension. We don't really know why and how the mirror dimension is brought back and how another Ryuki comes about, because I don't think there was time jacker intervention with this and Odin. So the way I perceived it is basically I think there's like this time loop thing that's going on with Ryuki. So Kenzaki is back as Kamen Rider Odin because Odin dies and he says Yui, so I think it's implied this is Kenzaki. So he's back and he restarts the Rider War, but in a different way with Ryuki, or with another Ryuki. So he brings up another Ryuki, and the diamond, I think, is absorbing people, but it's so he can bring back Yui, not the girlfriend. And somehow this triggers the Rider War restarting in the mirror dimension, and that's how the girl can control it all, something to that effect. Again, it's not really explained, but I kind of perceive it. She didn't start it. It was Kenzaki as Kamen Rider Odin restarting it, and it accidentally triggered his downfall. So that's really interesting. So at the end of the day, I liked Rider Time Ryuki. I thought it was a fun special. I enjoyed all the fights, all the character interactions. It was really cool. Even though I haven't seen Ryuki, I thought it was really great. But then, just my other issue with it is, why does it exist? Like, it doesn't really seem like there was a reason for Rider Time Ryuki to exist other than to give Gio the Ryuki Ride Watch because they didn't write it into the show proper. That's kind of how I see it. Or they had the board meeting for Kamen Rider Gio and they're like, alright, who can we get back? And they're like, well, we can get back like the entire cast of Ryuki. And they were like, okay, we'll just make a spin-off special for Ryuki because we can get that many riders back and we'll just retell Ryuki. I don't really know why they had to do a Rider Time Ryuki special, but I enjoyed it. It was a little rushed. Maybe if they had an extra episode so we could spend more time with the deaths, maybe some of the character interactions, I think overall it would work a lot better. And we could explain a lot more too, because really we needed to explain more. So, those are my thoughts on Rider Time Kamen Rider Ryuki. Be sure to let me know what you thought of this miniseries down in the comment section, on my Twitter, or on my channel Discord server. And also please consider hitting the subscribe button for more Kamen Rider content, and I hope to see you next time when we finally take a look at Rider Time Kamen Rider Kui. Oh.